The community coming together in Towson in response to tragic violence. Why Baltimore County leaders are hoping tonight's walk sends a strong message. Parents waiting for hours to speak their minds to lawmakers on a failing Maryland college savings program. How lawmakers are responding as money in many Maryland 529 accounts remains unreachable. And low-income families could be losing out on major scholarship money. The push in Annapolis to make sure those families can still choose where they want to send their kids to school.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. Thanks for staying with us. At this hour, Baltimore County leaders are preparing to hold a public safety walk in response to a string of recent violence in and around Towson. Let's listen in to the message from Baltimore County leaders. That's County Executive Johnny Olszewski.
The way that we're going to stop this, partnerships with the chamber to outfit them with cameras, partnerships with the police department so that they know that police officers are welcomed in their establishment, whether they're uniformed or undercover. And that they're part of the solution. If there are other ideas that they have, that was the takeaway from that meeting too, is we have some tangible steps that we all agree are important next steps forward, but that the conversation remains open. And that really together we're going to make sure that we're tracking this and doing whatever else it takes, as I was saying earlier, to make sure we take care of this. So we're going to invite those businesses in if they're not already part of the conversation.
But as I said before, 95% of the businesses in Towson have cameras, and the reason they have them is to keep our people safe. The people that come here, the people that live here, and they want to work together with our police department to make sure that this is a good place for everybody to come.
Maxine, last question.
One of the recent victim and even a recent suspect in crime had ties to Baltimore City. Is there any concern that the crime is possibly bleeding over from the city?
I'll say this, and then if the chief wants to add. Look, we've had suspects and we've had victims from Baltimore City, but we've also had suspects and victims from Baltimore County. We've had them from other jurisdictions across the state. So for us, the response is the same. We're here to make sure that Towson is safe. We want to invite people in. And again, but wherever you're coming from, whether you're local or from somewhere else, like the expectation is to act appropriately. And if you engage in inappropriate behavior, especially violent behavior, we're going to find you, arrest you, and hold you accountable. Chief, I don't know if you want to add.
And just to add, we live in a very mobile society, and people move around, and obviously we want to invite and have an inclusivity within Towson to have people come and recreate out here. So obviously, no matter who the victim, the suspect, or offender or perpetrator is, we're going to handle it in the same manner possible, and we want everybody to feel safe. That's the ultimate goal.
You are welcome to join. We're going to go start on a route in a minute. Thank you all.
All right, so a public safety walk is about to get underway with county police, the county executive, some business leaders there as well. Reporters will be tagging along. Community members will be there. Maxine Stryker is right there on scene, and she'll have more for us tonight at 6 and then tonight at 10 as well. Mayor Brandon Scott is addressing criticism about his handling of Baltimore's conduit deal with BGE, saying attempts to stop a vote from happening broke at least 6 Board of Estimates rules. 2 members of the board sat out the vote last week, leaving only the mayor and his 2 appointees to sign off. City Council President Nick Mosby and Comptroller Bill Henry tried to prevent the vote from happening, saying the process was rushed without enough public input.
In Anne Arundel County, a man is facing life-threatening injuries after a shooting this afternoon. There's no public safety threat at this time, according to police, but they are telling Fox 45 News the victim was shot at Brooklyn Park home by another household member. That suspect is now in custody, but police are still investigating. Also in Anne Arundel County, a car is stolen late last night. Police say just before 9 o'clock, a victim was approached by a man in their late teens or early 20s, wearing all black and a face mask. The suspect allegedly threatened the driver with a rifle before stealing the car. Anyone with information on the carjacking should contact Anne Arundel County Police. Mary?
Guy, thank you. Well, looking live at Annapolis right now, lawmakers are hearing from Maryland parents frustrated about losing thousands of dollars from their 529 college savings accounts. A new Senate bill would establish a work group to help parents get answers from Maryland 529. The group would be tasked with identifying the root cause of the problems, as well as developing policies and procedures to prevent something like this from happening again. Maryland 529 executives say the problem stems from an interest calculation error that they claim led to too much money going into accounts. Maryland's congressional delegation in Washington, D.C. announced a $2 million investment to remove West Baltimore's so-called highway to nowhere. The road was built more than 50 years ago. The project destroyed homes and displaced more than 1,000 residents. Lawmakers call the federal grants a first step toward addressing this historical injustice.
You would be inhuman not to care about these children and also give parents options. Why should your failing public school in your community be the only option?
A Baltimore City mom is pleading with lawmakers in Annapolis, fighting to keep a program allowing her to give her son a better education. Governor Wes Moore is proposing cutting funding for the Boost program, which provides scholarship money for low-income families to attend private school. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has the story.
More than 3,000 families have received a scholarship through the Boost program. We spoke with a Baltimore City mom who was one of those scholarship recipients, and she says her son would have otherwise gone to a struggling school in Baltimore. Now, Republican lawmakers are telling Governor Wes Moore if he wants to leave no one behind, fully funding the Boost program is one way to help. In East Baltimore, you'll find Johnston Square Elementary, where not one student who was tested on the latest state testing could do math at a grade level. One of 23 schools across Baltimore in the same situation.
The school selections weren't great.
It's also where Nefertari Lee's son would have been a student, but instead, he attended a private all-boys school.
Boost made the transition and made the everyday monthly bills in the household still affordable.
Her son Bryce, one of the 3,268 students who have gotten a scholarship from the Boost program. Boost provides financial help for low-income families to take their students out of failing schools and put them in a private school.
Every option should be on the table.
Republican lawmakers backing a bill to make the Boost program law, restoring the $2 million Governor Wes Moore is proposing to cut and fully fund the program.
We're committed to our public schools, all of us are. Despite the fact that we're committed to it, we still have students who want to get out of those failing schools now.
The bill defines a failing school as one with 2 or fewer stars under the state accountability system for 2 years in a row. The GOP-backed plan, called the Right to Learn Act, also calls for setting aside per pupil funding in a savings account for students who are in failing schools to use to go somewhere else.
House Bill 737.
The plan heard in a House committee.
It provides them a lifeline.
Democrats on the committee not asking a single question, moving on after brief testimony. After the hearing,
I think the path of the General Assembly is to phase out the Boost funding.
Chair Vanessa Atterbury making it clear there's likely not a path forward for the program.
Are you worried about what that could mean for these families who utilize that scholarship funding to get their students out of struggling schools?
So parents who use the money now, we're going to make sure that their kids aren't kicked out of whatever school that they're going to.
Looking at the latest data from the Boost program, almost $3 million has been given to students from Baltimore City to get out of their district. But no Democrat from the city appears to be behind the bill to fund Boost. Well, Governor Moore's budget proposal isn't reality yet. Fox 45 News sending a few questions to the governor asking, why are you proposing to cut $2 million from the Boost program? What options will low-income families have to get their child a better education without the Boost program? Is this proposed $2 million cut the first step in phasing out Boost? The governor's office not exactly answering the questions, instead offering a lengthy response, saying Governor Moore's, quote, biggest priority is creating a Maryland that leaves no one behind, and he's working toward that goal by proposing record-breaking investments in education across the board.
But this time,
Sponsor Delegate Jeff Grice says the money is there to fund the program.
I guarantee that $2 million means a heck of a lot more to the families that are impacted by this lifeline than it is us.
Nefertari Lee says the scholarship has changed her family's life.
I just don't think that this is an area that we should cut. We are ultimately cutting kids' futures if we do that. So I can't imagine, and I don't want to think about what it would have been like without it.
I'm told Republicans are open to other amendments that would strip out other portions of this legislation, really focusing on just fully funding the Boost program. But as it stands right now, it's unclear if Democrats would be on board. In Annapolis, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
And here's our look at today's top trending stories. Number one, it is Ash Wednesday, an important day for many Christians. It marks the beginning of Lent, a season of reflection, fasting, and prayer. Some of the faithful observing the holy day at the Baltimore Basilica in Mount Vernon. Number two, BSO incoming conductor Jonathan Hayward is officially welcomed to Baltimore. He's the first black conductor in the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra's history and says he hopes Baltimoreans can be inspired by music's power to unite.
I would love to see people of all ages, people of all race in the same place. To be able to realize that there's this beautiful common ground of the power of seeing live orchestral music together.
Hayward says he wants concerts to be a learning experience for the audience, and he's also working on a partnership with the University of Maryland. Well, President Biden met with NATO leaders in Poland today. What he had to say about America's support in the military alliance and the direct message to the nations closest to Russia's neighboring threat.
And we have unusual warmth on the way for tomorrow. Thursday forecast at 78. We could be threatening a record from nearly 150 years ago by tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to be letting you know how long the warmth is going to last and when we could have some flakes again in our forecast. Big cool down on the way, too. It's all in my Weather Authority forecast.
They may be eyeing the White House in 2024, but do voters have other ideas? I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a look at the contenders and their strategies coming up.
The Environmental Protection Agency is ordering Norfolk Southern to clean up the toxic mess caused by a train wreck in Ohio. The EPA announced sweeping enforcement actions against the railway company, holding it accountable for cleanup and the cost of a chemical spill that has devastated the East Palestine community. Today, former President Donald Trump visited that community and was stumping. Sinclair chief political correspondent Scott Thuman shows how a small town in Ohio is putting the spotlight on the 2024 race for the White House.
Former President Trump in Ohio talking to worried residents about safety after that train derailment with hazardous material and hoping it comes across as presidential, worthy of another term.
We have told you loud and clear, you are not forgotten. You are not forgotten. We stand with you. We pray for you.
The strategy twofold, separating himself from other GOP contenders and allowing him to take swipes at possible Democratic opponent President Biden for not yet going there himself.
That was the biggest slap in the face. That tells you right now he doesn't care about us.
Trump telling voters the administration failed to act or care quickly enough. And he's doing so on safe turf in a county that was competitive as recently as 10 years ago, but supported him with more than 71% of the vote in 2020. For Trump, it is a move to rectify what for now are rough numbers nationally.
Look, my message to President Trump is we thank you for your service, great, but we're moving on.
Generally, more Republican voters want someone other than Trump on the ticket in 2024, just as the majority of Democratic voters also desire an option other than Biden, despite previous vows to serve 2 terms.
And if that means a rematch against Donald Trump?
You're trying to tempt me now.
Meanwhile, Republicans are making the rounds. Already declared Nikki Haley was in early state Iowa this week with her mantra of out with the old and in with the new.
But it's going to take every single one of you to be a part of the solution.
And possibles, Senator Tim Scott in South Carolina.
My story is the American story.
And Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis talking policing in New York.
They're putting woke ideology ahead of your safety.
So while Trump and Biden may feel they're destined for a rematch, the question is that what Americans want? And can they convince a majority who right now say no? On Capitol Hill, I'm Scott Thuman.
The commitment of the United States to NATO, and I've said it to you many times, I'll say it again, is absolutely clear. We will defend literally every inch of NATO. Every inch of NATO.
President Biden met with NATO Secretary General and Eastern European leaders in Poland today. During his opening remarks at the meeting, Biden reiterated America's support of Ukraine. This meeting comes a day after Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia was suspending its participation in a nuclear weapons treaty with the United States. Well, a major blizzard stretching across much of the U.S. today, leading to winter weather advisories in 22 states. On the left, heavy snow in Arizona. On the right, snow hammers the Midwest as Minnesota could see record snowfall. More than 1,000 flights have been canceled. Major snowfall in the Midwest, but Jonathan, we're actually going to see record high temperatures tomorrow as this roller coaster weather week just continues. Today was pretty awful. We have to say
a little cloudy, some rain. I mean, this is kind of the story of the system. Just as cold and snowy as it is on the west side, it's just that intensity of warmth on the east side, and that's what we're seeing. We're on the eastern side of this thing, and that's why we're going to make some runs at records tomorrow. Toyota East Center Harbor Skycam right now, it is cloudy, 48 degrees, winds out of the east-northeast. That's a cool and kind of clammy direction for us, hence the showers that we had. And, yeah, temperatures going nowhere today. Wind chill now at 44 degrees after highs in the 60s yesterday, but we bobble up tomorrow, way up. Shorts and short sleeves weather is coming back. Temperatures all now generally in the 40s, but notice south and west, we kind of grade it back up to around 50. And you get far enough south and west. I mean, we go from 48 here in Baltimore to 78. We were at 80 last hour in Atlanta. Temperatures 32 in Detroit, 33 at Chicago, where it's icing to beat the band. And then you go south, we are 75 to 80 in New Orleans, and then below zero in the upper Midwest. And all the way down to the mountains of Los Angeles County, we have blizzard warnings in effect. So really shows you the big demarcation, if you will, on either side of this weather maker. And for us, That intense warmth is heading our way. Tomorrow, 78, the forecast high. The record for the day from back in 1874 is 78. So we make a run there at least tying the record, if not breaking it. Look at this complex system. Basically spans the entire width of the United States. Here in Baltimore, we're south of rain. Even had some sleet here early this morning as that little band came through. And then there's all the snow and even blizzard conditions on the northern side of this. That will continue to move out into the Canadian provinces. And what's going to move in for us is maybe a stray shower overnight, but warmer weather. And I mean way warmer for tomorrow. Temperatures start off in the 40s. That's where they're going to be all night tonight, actually working maybe into the 50s by the time you wake up tomorrow morning. There could be a sprinkle or two after midnight through the morning commute. That then moves east. And look at this. We're well into the 70s tomorrow afternoon. Again, that record high, 78 degrees. That's more typical of, say, about Memorial Day than it is mid to late February. So 45, lots of clouds. Could see a shower late tonight. Again, that'll be after midnight. Temperatures rise into the 50s by the time you're heading to work. 78 tomorrow. Enjoy an outdoor lunch or maybe a jog in shorts and short sleeves. Don't get too used to it, though. It is going to begin cooling down once again as we head towards the weekend. And actually, in fact, there could even be a snow chance into the weekend. I'm going to break that down coming up in my exclusive 10-day forecast.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
That massive winter storm is impacting the nation from coast to coast, including here in Flagstaff, Arizona. It's even deeper in Utah, where trucks and snowplows themselves are getting stuck in the snow. Minneapolis is seeing historic snowfall, where a second wave could bring another foot. Freezing rain was an issue this morning in South Bend, Indiana, but now it's just rain, but it's widespread and it's heavy.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Twitter.
Still ahead, a crisis facing one of America's favorite sweet treats. Why maple syrup is much harder to come by this winter. With this winter season being warmer than average, some crops around the U.S. are suffering, including a sweet kitchen staple. Gabrielle Caracciolo from our Sinclair sister station in Providence, Rhode Island, has the story.
Maple syrup season is underway across southern New England.
Out of all those taps, it all comes down to this tank.
But this year's mild winter temperatures are leaving syrup producers in a sticky situation.
We haven't collected sap in 3 days now.
In Westerly, Thomas Buck has been making syrup for more than 30 years. He says the syrup season typically lasts between 4 and 6 weeks, depending on the weather.
That's why we say there's no sugar in tomorrow. Get it done now, because as soon as the weather breaks, we're done.
In order to avoid the tap running dry, temperatures need to be above freezing during the day and below freezing at night. With fewer freezing nights this year,
the volume of sap is definitely down.
That makes it harder to turn the sap into syrup.
It's definitely a challenge. We've lost sap in the past where it was 58 degrees during the day and they're in the shade, but when we went the next day to put more sap in because we didn't have enough to start the evaporator, that sap was bad.
Despite less product and a shorter season, the quality remains high. This year, the sap's sugar content is at a desirable 2%.
The very first batch was the lightest batch I've made in a couple of years, and it was phenomenal.
Reporting in Westerly, Gabrielle Caracciolo, NBC 10 News.
All right, take a look at that exclusive 10-day forecast. We're up near, yes, 80 degrees tomorrow. If we do make it to 80, by the way, that would be the earliest 80 in the year that I could find, at least here on record. We could also tie a record for the day. 52 and blustery sunshine on Friday. 37 with a rain or snow shower potentially here. Looks like most of the moisture south and north of us. We're kind of in a hole with this system, I think, on Saturday. But again, don't be surprised to see a flake. 37 there, 52. Morning shower on Sunday. And we're back in the warmer temperatures again by next Tuesday. Wednesday turns unsettled, but rainy by the end of next week.
Jonathan, thanks. So finally tonight, party like it's 1999. The Maryland Zoo is hosting an adult prom and is sharing advice on how to take your mate on a special zoo date. Embrace the nostalgia, as this 21 and up event will have all of the prom classics: music, dancing, delicious food, penguins, I guess. I think so. Plus, what high school didn't have, an open bar. This 90s throwback prom will be on April 29th at the zoo's historic Mansion House. I don't know if penguins are included in it, but maybe. Tickets are on sale now. Well, that's all for Fox 45 News. Family Feud is next. We'll see you back here for the news at 10 tonight. Have a great night.